Hello, welcome back to Baki Taki, Season 5, Episode 9, the final season, not the final episode, but probably the final time, the final time it's a mostly Christian episode. And that's my guest, it's Christian.
Hi, I'm back again.
Yes. Welcome back to the show, Christian. I
missed the entire pickle arc.
Yes, what a pickle that is. It's funny. I should have brought you in. You're like a pickle guy.
You think I really like pickles, but I really don't eat pickles
This
that
guy,
often.
every time I'm with him, he's eating a pickle. It's crazy.
Because you and Lindsay both refuse to eat pickles, and I usually don't order something at the bar. So like,
This is what
ate
I
the
mean.
pickle.
He didn't even order a sandwich with a pickle on it. He's just eating that pickle raw. I don't know how he does it.
I have a problem with food waste, and I will eat a pickle if it prevents it from going in the garbage.
Yes.
Also, I do like their pickles. They do have particularly good pickles.
At the Drake, yeah. Did you end up going to Pickle Fest
No,
at
I
Anderson's? No, yeah.
No. Yeah, it wasn't really my speed. Not a huge pickle head.
Well, we can argue this all day, but instead, let's move past the pickle saga. What I liked about this was, so at the beginning of the season, I put out sort of a casting call to a bunch of people I wanted to bring back, and of course you were on that list. And half the people just didn't respond. But everyone else who did just sort of picked it from the beginning going down, you know? And I think you were the only one who jumped right to one of the ones with a fun name, and you chose the biggest father-son fight in history. Were you looking forward to this episode based on the title?
I mean, I had to. The only other, what was it, God of Boxing or something like that? There's one other name that was like, that's a pretty good one. Obviously, Taste of Dad, the finale, like that was like, there's other plans for that. So
Dress is a good one.
Yeah, but isn't dress like a move? I seem to remember them talking about that at one point.
It is a move, and it's so insane that even like it's better than if they started wearing a dress.
Yeah. I had a feeling it wasn't just like the clothing because I thought it was like a fight thing, but it is a weird name for an episode. Taste of Dad is definitely the worst one though.
But it fits. You've watched
name.
that episode now.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, and it does fit. Terrible name though.
Exactly. But this is a little bit cheating because you've seen the finale. But there's this is not the penultimate episode. There's still a little bit of time in between. So I've been asking all my guests, what would you like to see in Baki that hasn't happened yet?
Well, I feel like the intro teases Retsu with a peg leg boxing. And I mean, I'm sure that's in the season, but like I didn't get to see any of that. And like all I got in the finale was him saying, what was it? Like I'm becoming the champion of boxing or something, or like he's renouncing the title or something. I can't remember what it was. He was just like at a press conference in the post-credit scene, which they're not picking up. That's a draft hotline for sure.
The Retsu.
But like, I kind of want to see like a tournament arc for Retsu. I feel like it's.
Well, did you know
that would be fun?
So a fun thing about Baki is that there's a lot of spin-offs, like official spin-offs, and some of them are pretty goofy. Like there's one I've talked about on the podcast before where Sikorsky and Gaia become roommates, and like Sikorsky starts living on the ceiling because he can climb up the walls.
But there's incredible.
But there's an entire. Are you familiar with the term isekai?
No.
Okay, think like I'm trying to think of that name, the Knight in King Arthur's Court or whatever. But it's the genre where a regular dude gets sent back to either medieval times or fantasy times.
Right.
There's
sort
an entire
an Outlander thing.
Yeah, Outlander, perfect example, perfect isekai.
What's the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? That one bit in it.
Yeah. Retsu has his own isekai where he goes back to ancient China and just starts doing martial arts back there. So if you want to read a
Oh,
completely
does he
different
like kind of become
story,
his own grandfather then?
oh my god, that would be so good. His own great 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 grandfather.
Well, I just mean like in terms of like teaching the martial arts, like does he end up basically founding a martial art that he later practices? Because that would be kind of fun.
That'd be
And
funny.
also really not in the vibe of Baki, although
No,
Baki fights a praying mantis, so
what I would like is it would
whatever.
make it wrong when every time he says it's 4,000 years of martial arts, because actually it's 8,000 years of martial arts.
Because it's time is a flat circle.
Yeah, they were thinking about Retsu when they said that. Let's jump into this episode, because
Hmm.
oh boy, I was talking with Lindsay about this. Sometimes I love this show, ironically, but I think that this fight from beginning to end is art, and I love I just think that every moment has impact and decisions behind it. So let's just jump in. What did you think as the episode started?
Well, it kind of just jumps right into it. I did want to comment that in the intro, Yujiro's skull is it's kind of like the Darth Vader being electrocuted bit, where it's like you can see all the like metal bits in his skull. Like
Yeah,
his Yujiro's skull is just that like evil face he makes. You know, like everything is just like kind of monstrous looking, and it's
yeah,
like his skull is just shaped like a monster. Anyway, yeah, it just kind of starts with Baki walking up to a restaurant or like having been dropped off and realizing that he's underdressed. And I had no context for I kind of assumed based on the name for the previous episode that he had already gone to dinner with Yujiro, but
hmm
apparently not.
hmm
He's just arriving now.
this is actually a weird thing. This is like the only Baki episode I can think of that does that does a recap of the previous episode. Um,
Hmm.
that's why like they actually have dinner for like an entire half of an episode, and they just shorten it into the first minute and a half of this one.
Oh, so it's sort of like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly,
Also, on a streaming platform, totally useless to do that.
exactly. Like, well, I was actually thinking how nice it was they did that, because it really maybe they finally looked at the analytics and realized that a significant portion of their Canadian Baki listeners just pick a random episode and then drop the show.
They did it for you.
I like to think that if they ever looked at the Ontario Netflix Baki statistics, that there's like a weird there's some funky stuff going on.
It's a confusing mess for the analytics people at Netflix. But yeah, he gets like taken to a private room to be with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
He dislikes it, the espresso he's given.
Bitter.
It's too bitter for him. Sort of like Evil Dead 2. And then he asks about his mom,
Mm-hmm.
uh, specifically why Yujiro killed his mom, which is a pretty understandable question to have of your father.
You'd think so.
Um,
You'd think that's a fair question to ask.
Is that so strange? For a son to want to know why his father killed his mother?
but apparently not. Yujiro thinks that it's crossing a line
There are certain lines that a bratty child wouldn't understand and should never be crossed. So know your place and stop asking.
and calls him a bratty child, basically, and tells him to like to fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. I feel like you killed his mom, dude. Maybe don't be a dick.
Yeah,
It like answer the question at least.
yeah. And Baki's not even mad. He's just like wondering. He just wants to know. Maybe he'd understand.
Yeah, I mean, like it does feel like Yujiro has like tried to groom Baki into like a younger version of himself, which
Mm-hmm.
is already a whole messy thing. But like, you would think that like understanding that would be something. But like, I don't know that he has a good reason. He never says this entire episode, and it's like kind of the only thing that I've kind of been wondering is like, why did he kill her? What was the point of that? But
I feel like that's part of why he doesn't say it. I think it was just like an impulse thing. Like when I buy like a chocolate bar at the checkout line. Like I think he was just annoyed and just killed her spur of the moment. And so he doesn't really have like a great like explanation why.
that makes him even worse. And he's already like a huge piece of shit. Because like he just kind of like hugs her to death, right? Like he kind of just bear hugs her.
Yeah, in front of Baki.
Oh, that's gonna
Yeah.
leave a mark.
But to be fair, according to
Um,
Baki, she died. Um, she died happy and fulfilling her, I think, womanly needs. I don't know.
Those were tears of happiness. Her deepest desires as a woman were fulfilled in that moment.
Um, there's if the first episode goes over all this stuff, but uh, as much as I like,
that
I
raises more questions.
yeah, no. As much as I love harping on the fact that Yujiro killed Baki's mom and then Baki just gets over it, it is a really complicated relationship that I don't even think is really
Yeah.
explained.
Because he also killed like Jack Hanma's mom, right? Like,
Probably. I don't know what Jack's
okay,
deal is. I think he just wants to be taller than everyone. We'll
wants to
see.
take his steroids in peace.
Yeah, just let him. I love Jack Hanma. I saw this guy on TikTok who said he was the real life Jack Hanma, and then he was 6'4". Like I'm taller than this guy. Like he's not the real life Jack Hanma. Probably took a bunch of
Also,
steroids.
like, is that
But
something that you want to be?
oh, I would
Is the
never
real
want to
life
meet.
Jack Hanma?
I think the best thing about Jack Hanma is that he's not real. I would, I would be terrified.
He's just a thought experiment in some weirdo's brain.
Yes. Oh, that's true for 90% of the characters in this. Baki's a
Yeah.
collection of thought experiments and guys like Jay Guevara. Like,
Just weird historical references that don't really make a lot of sense
exactly.
with or without context.
Yeah. But yeah, so tensions rise, and at the end of the last episode, Baki had grabbed Yujiro sort of by the cufflinks, or I don't know, by the collar of his shirt. Better way to describe it. Better way to describe it. What a save! Oh yeah, it was a dog. I mean, a cat is a better way to say that. What am I even saying? And then Yujiro eventually, I don't know, starts vibrating with rage. People think that not only an earthquake has started, but a big earthquake.
It's an earthquake! A really big one!
Yeah, like glass starts shattering, like people are freaking out. The restaurant manager gets like a little moment of the narrator saying he was petrified, sort of thing.
I couldn't understand what was going on. The only things in the building that weren't shaking were Baki and his father.
Yeah.
And yeah, everyone is freaking out because Yujiro is vibrating.
Yeah. And eventually he's able to flip Baki over in a classic Baki animation where they just rotate him like
Yeah, they took a nice little PNG of Baki, a little JPEG, and just spun it around a bunch and landed him in the chair.
yeah. Lovely. Yeah.
They
So
did kind of fake out that the chair was going to fall backwards, and then it didn't, which I thought was kind of funny.
that would have been embarrassing, falling back on your chair at a
Yeah.
fancy restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love the fancy restaurant. But Yujiro eventually comes out and he's like, "Hey guys, sorry, I just got to teach my dumb kid a lesson. This is more evidence that I would never eat at a fancy restaurant in Japan in Baki because this happens every time we go there." And And eventually, Yujiro has a great move where he tells Baki to stand at attention, and Baki just does. He just goes along with it because Yujiro is very intimidating. And this is what I mean by this isn't just a fight where people are using kung fu. Every move in this fight is symbolic, and so instead of punching Baki, he spanks him, and he spanks him like out the window.
Baki. Attention, boy!
Yes, sir!
I made a note of the facial expression for the first spank, and Baki is making a face that I don't know what emotion it is.
What are you
I wanna
debating
use
between?
there's like it almost looks like it kind of looks like the face you'd make when like cold water splashes you in the butt while you're on the
Yep.
toilet.
Yep.
Like it's that sort of like horror and revulsion, but like very targeted.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's a pretty
A little bit of
close.
violation, I guess.
He probably didn't expect that to happen. Yeah. You don't
Yeah.
expect. Oh man.
It's just such a weird thing that like his dad's call to attention just like makes him go completely stiff, like deer in the headlights sort of thing.
It's and it's like, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, but like it works. Like it's it sort of helps paint the dynamic between the two. But it's fun. It's just funny, honestly. I think that's one of the funnier moments of the episode.
Yeah, but they also like when he spanks him the first time, Baki like shoots out the window and like holds on to the outside of the window frame and launches himself back in. Kind of
When he,
awkwardly, honestly, considering,
yeah.
other things he's done. But
When,
yeah,
when he
it's
got when he
that's
got
it. He
spanked out
spanked him out a window.
when he got spanked out the window, I just imagine like if this was the end to if this was the end of the show, the Baki just got spanked by his dad out the window and just fell to his death. That would have been so. I would have died. He comes back in, but it's not for long because Yujiro does actually just throw them out the window, holding on to Baki as they plummet to their certain death.
Oh, you're jumping over one thing that I thought was really fucking funny was that Yujiro, or sorry, Baki realizes Yujiro isn't going for vital organs as he's thrown through a wall and thinks this isn't a fight. He was thrown through a wall.
Oh, that is a great point. Well, yes, but he was thrown through the wall with his non-vital organs.
Yeah, only his spine and like anything like kidneys, like it's back first, I think.
Yeah, I guess you do need
Still
your
gonna
back.
friggin' hurt.
Yeah,
Spine is important, right?
yeah. Did you find it funny how often they like to call it the father-son fight, like with the specific wording?
Yeah, it sounded like it was a specific genre that there wasn't actually a name for in English.
That's exactly
But
what I've been thinking this whole time. Like it's such a weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was listening to Millie's episode about like what was the term for it?
The brute strength
Like
pro.
what they call Yujiro. Yeah, the brute strength pro. It's like, is that like a term that English doesn't have an accurate translation for? Because they keep using it like it's a real thing.
Yeah, we just don't have one in the Western world. The brute force pro lives in Japan.
There is one guy in Japan who they just let do whatever he wants because he's just that tough.
No, okay, thank you. That's what I've been thinking the whole season because it's such awkward phrasing. But the father-son fight where they don't hit vitals, we resume with them falling 30 stories in the air to certain death, except somebody parked their Ferrari or Lambo outside.
I think it was like an old Mercedes. Like it's a luxury car, and when they land on it and destroy it, Yujiro has this moment saying like, "These luxury cars aren't good for much, but they make a good landing," sort of thing. Like they're softer than other cars.
I guess it's the leather on the seats. Maybe it's a little comfier.
There's still a roof.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like a convertible or anything. I don't think it had like a fabric roof.
No, yeah. It looked pretty painful.
Also, when you're falling 30, like, what was it, 30 stories?
Probably, yeah.
I don't think the softness of the car is going to help you. I don't think a bit of leather is going to do it.
I enjoyed how they lampshaded it. Like, having the narrators say, very few people have ever survived falling and landing on a car. But, if it was going to happen to anybody, why not Baki?
Yeah, exactly. Why not these two assholes?
Yeah.
But, like, they even have this, like, I think one of the only actual, like, cutaway bits in the episode in that sequence where they cut away to this, like, paratrooper sergeant or whatever who they ask, like, could someone survive jumping from a high rise? And he's like,
Say you're over 490 feet in the air and aiming to hit a car in a parking lot in the area below you. It may be possible.
I feel like is barely like, what, did we need this guy?
Well, I 100% agree, because I don't even think he answered the question of could you survive. Like, I think they just point up and asked him, could you hit a car? And that wasn't what I was amazed at or surprised at. Like, I can believe you jump off a building and hit a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. We're never seeing that guy again. I do wish he came back to answer other questions about the fight.
Every time they have a fall, like, of any height, it's like, hey, could they survive that? That was a 5-foot fall? Is that okay?
Yeah. What's your opinion on the self-defense of women and children? Air Defense Sergeant Tanaka.
Only slapping.
Only slapping. Oh man, I'm jumping the gun a bit here, but when they said the self-defense of women and children, Lindsay was like, are they gonna kick him in the balls again? I was like, no, it's the other one.
They did it again. But oh man, during the call, Bakia is also thinking about how like he has this thought that like, oh, maybe it's like a murder-suicide thing, but he's like, the murder part I get. He's way too much of an egomaniac to ever consider suicide, which is, I mean, probably not wrong.
Yeah.
But also such a weird, like, you're falling 30 stories and that's the thought you're having.
It does seem like something that would be like in like an episode of Sherlock or something, like the Moffat Sherlock. Like, as I'm falling 30 stories, it's like, oh, but he can't be doing this because he's this type of person. There must be an explanation. Wah, wah. Spoiler alert for Sherlock, the Moffat one. If you don't want to, just pull out your headphones right now for the next 5 seconds or something. I don't know. Just like the Moffat Sherlock, they fall off a building and inexplicably survive.
Yeah, and it's not really explained. The cutaway that they do is unsatisfactory. Hopefully the fans can figure out why they survived, because the showrunners didn't.
Because they're big and tough. If Benedict Cumberbatch looked like Yujiro, nobody would be coming up with theories on how he survived. They would just say he bent his knees.
It would be a very different Sherlock, though.
Yeah, it'd be great. Friggin'.
Especially if everything else was the same.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Still Martin Freeman.
It's just Sherlock is
Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd watch it. All right. So eventually they do get up from the car crash. Baki actually can't get up. He asks Yujiro to help him. And pulling a Kyojaku, as I'll call it, he goes for the handshake and then uses it to hit Yujiro in the face with all of his might. And it turns out that hitting him in the face is the equivalent of hitting a giant rubbery mountain.
Yeah, it was a giant rock, like mountain, covered in a thin layer of rubber.
Yeah.
A horrible visual.
That part is what sold it on me, because at first I was just like, okay, I can easily visualize this. You know, you're hitting a mountain, and then like the rubber part, I was just like, this is something I've never imagined, like covering a mountain in a thin layer of rubber. But that's why I bet the creator,
I bet the creator of this like really had to lean back on like what's like the strangest way I could describe Yujiro's skin. Like, what would it feel like to touch this inhuman monster of a man?
Yeah, and I think he came up with too many ideas, because we got this if we're calling this the weirdest thing his skin does this episode, like,
oh god, no. Yeah, it's not. It's, I would say, the weirdest description of it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
But it's not the weirdest thing his skin does.
Correct. So at this point, Baki is, not in a great spot. I think Yujiro throws him into the mall or something like that. And the military shows up for about 3 seconds, and then they all run away, which was...
They just scatter.
Apprehend that man! Stop!
12 seconds later.
There's, I noticed there was a weird music sting too that like as he's walking towards the cops or military or whatever, there's like a music sting of like him being intimidating with like the like music's picking up intensity and then it just kind of cuts out at a point where like nothing's actually happened, like the cops haven't dispersed, the like
I think that was the
I
commercial
don't know,
break.
it felt like a weird. Are there actually commercial break cuts in this that aren't on Netflix?
Yeah, like, well, I don't know, man. Yeah, there definitely are commercial breaks. There's a few really awkward ones I've caught in this show, and I think that was one of them. I don't know where they
Okay,
air this
that
with
would make
commercials.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense actually, because like I felt like the walk towards the military people was like taking too long. It felt a little bit like that bit in Holy Grail with what's it?
The
I can't
knights.
remember which of the knights. Like,
Yeah.
no, one of the knights is like charging the castle,
Mhm.
and you just like see him off in the distance running towards the door,
Yeah.
and then it's like five, reverse shots of him just being really far away, and then suddenly he's right there.
But yeah, so I think they just threw in the military stuff. I think that's also why the military is so useless there, is I think they just used it as an act break. They're like, oh, the military's here, commercial, and they're gone.
He literally walks through a pane of glass too to get into the mall after he scares off these tiny, tiny baby men. Like
he loves
threw
doing
Baki
that.
through. Yeah, but like he threw Baki through into the mall, like presumably through the glass,
Yeah.
because he follows the same path. But then the glass is just back there again, so that he can press his face against it to go through it.
You don't
Like he
become the
doesn't even like
strongest man in the
punch
world.
through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just his face.
No. Yeah, he's been doing that. He started doing that in the pickle arc, and he's done it. He does it like multiple times this season. It's I don't know. It's a nice little character detail to have Yujiro just walk through glass walls repeatedly. So we get another fun parental beatdown move, as I'll call it. So he spanked Baki earlier. Now he grabs him by the chin, or not by the chin, by the cheek, and just sort of starts lecturing.
It's really
him.
painful.
Well, yeah, even Baki's like, fuck, that hurts. Like, ah.
And now you're about to pay a price for going easy on me, you brat. You're not gonna like the cost. Do you regret it yet, holding back on me?
Like the skin on Baki's face looks like torn.
Yeah.
Like it's all like raw afterwards.
Yeah, no, it's the world's strongest man treating you like his grandchild, with the cute chubby cheeks. The fight continues on. We get some fun moves. I think they go up the escalator at one point. After
Yeah, Baki. There's one bit where Baki like jumps into the air, like arms sort of in like a, I guess like praying mantis pose, and just like kicks both of his shoes off one at a time. It's just such a great. The way it was animated was hilarious because like no part of him is moving. It's just one leg at a time kicking off the shoes.
And
So good.
it's such an ineffective move. Like
No, it does nothing.
Oh my
You literally see like the again like PNG of a Converse high top just like flying at Yujiro's face, and they just like bounce off with no effect.
yeah.
Now
But-
Baki's got no shoes on.
So this is where we get into what we were talking about earlier, the self-defense of women and children. And it's fun that you're coming back on this because I think you were here for the original introduction of this move, even though it's come up multiple times since then.
I've been here for I think most of them because I was here for the first one, the one with blanking on his name, the Death Row
Yanagi the Poisoner.
Yanagi, right? Gimmick Man, and when he came back, like the sex one, or I guess that was kind of the same thing because he didn't do it in his first appearance with Yanagi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Well,
It
I've
was-
seen
it-
I've seen a few of these. I think.
Yeah, it came back in the Pickle arc as a way to make Pickle feel pain.
Right. I watched that episode with Pankuri. That's why I'm
that's
thinking of it.
That makes sense. So yeah, so it's back again, and it's back to being. We need to make clear every time that this is what women and children do. But we
You can't
all,
introduce this without saying it's for women and children. This isn't a cool thing for men to do.
don't try this at
Beneath
home,
them.
boys. But yeah, so we've heard this before. Slapping somebody, you are targeting the skin. It's the largest organ, and it is in front of your muscles. So it doesn't matter how strong your muscles are, you are going to feel that pain. Unlike every other attack, which also hits the skin, but slaps hurt more. I believe it. I guess. Baki gets slapped by his dad,
Yeah.
and obviously it hurts. He's the strongest man in the world. But what I really want to talk about is when Baki finally snaps and decides to slap his dad back. I will be playing the audio for this, but he does, or in the edit. But he says, "Feel the pain, Dad." And then after he connects, he goes, "Feel the pain, feel the pain, feel the pain."
Baki had no choice but to strike back. He used the women and children's self-defense weapon that his father had taught him.
Feel the pain, Dad!
Feel the pain. Feel the pain.
Feel the pain! Feel the pain! Feel the pain!
Yeah, he goes on a little tear there.
I love the edit.
The animation for it was hilarious because like he's literally like spinning and his arm looks like Luffy or whatever his name is from One Piece.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like spaghetti arm sort of thing.
Editor Steve, I just want to clarify that I know that his name is Luffy. But you know
Because
what?
Yujiro. Yeah.
It would have had an effect, but yes. What did Yujiro do?
Yujiro gets just horrifically vascular. Like every muscle in his body activates at once, basically. And he just looks like every vein in his body is bulging. All the muscles are just like pulled to their tightest point, sort of thing. He looks like the Crypt Keeper on steroids. And apparently that's all it takes to resist the whip strike is to just activate every muscle.
Yeah. In which raises the question of was it worth it? They describe him as a flayed man, and like it does sort of look like
Yeah,
all
he
of
looks
his
like
skin
just
has
muscle.
been ripped off. His face looks more grotesque than normal. His veins look much more grotesque than normal. And like I get that he didn't go, "Ooh, ow, that really hurt." But is it really that much cooler if you have to literally stand still and flex I don't know. It doesn't look like he's just letting it slide off cool as a cucumber.
No, it looked like that was basically as painful as the whip strike. Which
Yeah.
I did want to say, like Baki the last time he got whip strike by Yanagi, who is a master of the whip strike, supposedly, was basically unfazed without doing anything.
Yeah. and those slaps ripped his flesh off.
Yeah. See, but the difference is he just had sex.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of that would be different.
You know what I'm realizing? I'm realizing maybe it didn't hurt when he was fighting Yanagi because, like, the whole point is that you're slapping this exposed flesh, right? And if you rip the flesh off, you're not going to feel that pain anymore.
That's true, I guess. You wouldn't feel any pain where the skin's been torn off.
Yeah, and the skin
Not
being
at
torn
all.
off, that's just regular pain. That's not like magic girl self-defense pain.
Do you think, you said Magic Girl, do you think that Baki, how do you think he would square up against Sailor Moon?
Oh boy, it's funny because I love arguing that Baki would win against power scalers, being like, yeah, Baki would beat Goku, Baki would beat Naruto, but
Baki beating Goku is a hot take.
well, you know what? It's funny. It's actually a pretty common debate, because what people do is to even the playing field. They take out all of the magic powers and stuff, and it's just people fighting on pure martial arts ability. And Goku is one of the only characters as simple-minded and simple-minded and simple character as Baki, that all they do is practice martial arts. But anyway, Sailor Moon.
I would say, yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I would just say Sailor Moon. I've learned is apparently very, very powerful, and I also don't think Baki would. I don't think Baki would even realize. He would go Sailor Moon, and he'd be looking for a guy like Popeye because he wouldn't realize that he can fight women. So I think he
should be the third female character on the show.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, are we counting his mom?
Yes. I would say that Sailor Moon will be the fifth female character after Kozue, Baki's mom, Maria, and I guess I thought I had one more. I guess Kozue's mom. Kozue's mom's got to come back in this.
I will say that I think, yeah, I know there was like that one scene. I remember that before she gets kidnapped. But I will say that if you're comparing two characters in a fight, and in order for one of them to have a chance, you have to say no magic allowed. I think they've lost.
Yeah, well, sometimes the things happen. You never know.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Just going into my notes after Yujiro flays himself. Tokugawa shows up. Our good pal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
he
comes
cheerleads for Baki a little bit.
That was fun. I like, because usually he just wants to see people fight each other. It was fun that he was like so taking a side on this and taking Baki's side.
Yeah, he tells him the whole like the mall's been evacuated, the military's like escorted everyone away, and apparently he can just destroy the whole mall if he needs to.
Yeah, and the prime minister is just standing behind him the whole time, just like, oh, what's going on here?
That was the prime minister?
The prime minister of Japan, I'm pretty sure.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I did really like after the whip strike though. Sorry, Yujiro says, "What an immature idiot! You should have aimed for one of my vital organs," which is hysterical.
Yeah, it's fun. I guess we haven't even talked on this, but like a big part of this episode is the conflict between Baki, who wants to treat this like a father-son fight, just like an average day where you go fight your dad. You're not trying to kill him, you're just trying to fight your dad.
We've all done it.
Yep. Just, anything's allowed as long as you don't go for the vital organs. We've broke a lot of windows in my house.
Just walking through them.
Yeah. But Yujiro, I think his whole perspective is that he spent his whole life on this mountain, unassailable, the perfection of combat, and he doesn't want to have a father-son fight. He wants to fight. He wants to actually have somebody challenge him, and so, even if neither of them really want to kill each other, it doesn't mean that they might not end up in a fight that intense.
Yeah. That makes sense. It feels like the whole episode was kind of, it was just kind of built around that, like, Baki, you need to target my vital organs. And Baki's like, this is a father-son fight. I'm not going for vital organs.
Yeah.
He's not going for vital organs either, he thinks, as he's thrown through a wall.
Baki doesn't know where his vital organs are. Actually, I'm kidding.
They've probably been rearranged badly at this point.
Oh, that'd be such a fun thing if Baki's organs were just all over the place. Anywho, this leads into sort of the end of the episode with Yujiro's probably my favorite line delivery of him this season, where he's like, "Get serious, Baki, come on."
For crying out loud. Get serious, Baki. That's enough of this shit. Show your father what you're made of. Let's do this for real.
Let's do this for real. Come on. And like he's like a disappointed father, and because he is a disappointed.
He's like kind of whiny.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, what are we doing here? Come on, like, I don't know. I think the Yujiro
it was a weird
is pretty good.
It didn't sound like Yujiro.
Yeah, but that's what I liked about it. We're seeing a different part of his character in this fight, and that's basically the end of the episode. I know I sort of jumped all over the place. Did I anything else you wanted to add?
Just looking back through to see if there's anything. I feel like I jumped back a lot when I had caught something that I thought was funny.
Oh, good.
I did have an interesting experience at Muay Thai today. We had this guy in that does Kempo,
Oh shit.
and we were sort of sparring, and he just pulled down my shorts and hit me in the nuts. And apparently that's Kempo.
Oh fuck, man. That I feel for you. That's a classic Muay Thai blunder.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm learning this one. Could
And
have
did he?
gone with something practical,
Was it
like
just
a
a flick
Japanese
that he
martial
got
art.
you with?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I was gone.
that's rough. At least, like, was it a young guy? Like, somebody like pretty fit, or was it?
No, unfortunately, he was like extremely old.
Oh, that's yeah. You may want to look into a new studio. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm coming back from that one.
Oh boy, that's too bad. Well, all right, Christian. Honest, that was very funny. So you've been on basically every season except the pickle arc. So if you had to describe Baki, and you've seen the finale now too, like how would you describe the trajectory? Do you think it was always good? Do you think it got better as it went? Did it peak?
I think it had improved a bit with some context. I did see that one episode in the pickle arc. I sent a representative.
Right.
So I kind of got a pretty full. I got like at least one from each season. I mean, you really like the Death Row Inmates arc. I think conceptually it's fun, and I feel like each season, like when you look at it as like a concept,
Mm-hmm.
it should be like it has a lot of potential, but
Realized
just
potential, yeah.
no, I think the execution is still lacking in a lot of ways. I do think that I don't know if it's just that they got like maybe like a tiny bit more budget, but at least this episode like kind of showed the fighting. It wasn't constantly cutting away, which was nice.
Yeah.
This one felt like there was like an actual fight going on that wasn't just, two punches being thrown and a bunch of people talking about how amazing it is.
Two punches being thrown and then cutting back to feudal Japan.
To show the history of a punch.
Yeah. All right. So it
Yeah.
sounds like it slightly improved as it went along, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, at least in the sense that I think this episode was an improvement. I think it had a little bit more of a structure to it,
Yeah.
which is important in storytelling.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that this last 4 or 5 episodes have a story that is a story that that it's been wanting to tell for the entire show, and I think it has better animation. It has better like beats to hit. And I'll be singing its praises for the next few weeks. But yeah,
Yeah, at least until you're done the podcast.
I'm gonna be doing this podcast for until probably I think I'll end around January, February, but we'll see. All of the records will be done in the next week or so.
Yeah, well, you won't have anything big going on in the new year, right?
Yeah, no, that's when I start my 16-week vacation.
Oh, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah, gonna sleep in. That's my goal. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Christian. And that's all the Baki we've got to talkie. And I'll see you all next week.
Goodbye for the final time. Well, wait, no, not really the final time. But I didn't say bye for the finale. So, goodbye.
All right, it's recommendation time. So I've been watching a lot of anime lately, like way more than normal, and mostly just because my wonderful daughter, is about a month old at this point, and that means that She likes to sleep on my chest, and she likes to eat food, or from her bottle, of course, which requires both my hands. So I'm often on the couch with no hands to do anything like browse the internet or play with my phone. And she's not interested in whatever I'm doing at this point. So it's a great time to watch TV. And if I throw on an anime on Crunchyroll, it'll just start the next one immediately. So I've been burning through them, so much to the point that I was getting tired of my picks that I was choosing, and so I asked Lindsay to pick one for me, and that's how I found this show. So it's called Blood Blockade Battlefront, and that's why I would never have picked it, but Lindsay just picked it out of the blue. I just find there's so many anime that are about blood, weirdly, and this one sort of does, but what I like about it is it's an incredibly episodic show. Like, you can just turn it on, and the plot is basically that one day a portal to another dimension opened up underneath New York, and the whole city feels like you're watching the Men in Black movie. Like, it's just people, New Yorkers, interacting with these incomprehensible alien demon looking things, and just living life in the city. Like, the city looks horrible. You could just die. Like, people are firing missiles just in the city, and that's, like, honestly a pretty tame example. So the city feels fleshed out in the way that it feels like a real city, and that you are only seeing so little of it because we're just watching small episodes in it. So really anything can happen each time, and it's just, there's a fun cast of characters. I think that the first season's good and the second season's better. Mostly because the first season tries to make more sense of it. It adds some anime original stuff because this is an adaptation that tries to tie it together and make it more of a unified story. And I think that it's at its best when it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen. Our protagonists are just a group of people who try and keep the city going. And they sometimes manage to do it. It's a super fun show. It's jazzy to start. I don't know. I just recommend giving it a watch. I knew nothing about it going into it, and I ended up really liking it. I don't think it's that obscure. I think Bones animated it, and they do a bunch of good stuff nowadays. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Next week, we're going to do the rom-com roundup, where I'm going to recommend all of the many rom-coms I've watched in the past few weeks to try and fill that Kaguya-shaped hole. Anyway, I'll see you all later.